Hello and welcome to another episode of the DewatchPod. I am Jorgen Smorgasbord.
And I am Jim with a G, and we are back with Season 3 of Love, Death, Robots.
The final episode of Season 3 that we're going to watch on the pod.
That's right, because the rest are either not sci-fi or bad, and we're leaving it up to you to decide which are which, but whatever episode you really like, that one was just not sci-fi, I promise.
Yeah, no. And that other episode that's like a bit sci-fi but like really bad. Yeah, we know.
We are on your side, listeners. That's the important part.
Yeah, and while Jim is being vague, I'm being very specific. But it's about something uncontroversially bad.
Oh,
So don't worry.
We're
all on the same side. Just like we were with the end of Game of Thrones.
I love podcasts soothing for your listeners.
Yeah, no.
We share your political opinions, despite the fact that we've expressed a lot of political opinions on this podcast prior.
That's right.
But we've had a change of heart, unless you already agreed with us, in case we haven't. Now, Jorgen, where have our journeys taken us today?
They have taken us to the very pulse of the machine,
it's
Jim.
It's a really good title, right? I think it might
I think it's too indulgent.
Okay, well, I guess that's another split between you and I. I love indulgence.
Yeah. And to quickly do a yes-no, it's a yes.
Yeah, I'd say it's a yes for me too. It is equally indulgent as its title, and that's fun.
Yeah.
Hitting us with some content warnings, Jorgen.
That's absolutely fucking right. We have a fair number of them for like 15 minutes of episode.
I thought it would be fewer when I was thinking about this episode, but yeah.
Starting with death,
gore,
suffocation,
drugs,
a vehicle crash, and sort of suicide.
Ah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about it in that context.
Yeah. That's why we're doing it live, baby.
Do you think it would be way easier if, like, this podcast was just about, like, The Wire or something to the content warnings?
Yeah, obviously.
Sci-fi is hard, man. I'm glad we have such huge brains. But moving into another huge brain.
So, we recommend you watch the episode. It's not that long. You can just squeeze it in.
Yeah.
And, yeah, no, we have a fairly straightforward episode, which is like on the moon of Jupiter that is Io.
Yes.
And there's like two astronauts like going for a little joyride, by which I mean doing a scientific mission in a space vehicle.
I like the interpretation of, like, astronautical expeditions as joyrides.
I reckon it's sort
1969, of like... the first joyride to the moon.
But it's joyful in some sense.
I'm not disagreeing on the joy part. I guess not
and
the joy part.
The Earth splits and bursts open around them, upturning their vehicle.
Yes, some sort of sulfur explosion they sort of refer to, and there is a great crash. And our protagonist, whose name is Martha, kind of comes to, is like, ooh, this is bad. Let me go check on my fellow came with me on this journey. Ooh, extremely dead. Like the most obviously dead a person can be, without like being in multiple color. Pieces. Yeah, it is bad. She immediately is like, well, trauma will have to wait. Let's get a beat on like when the next like contact with their like orbital station is coming. And
it's like too long.
Yeah, it's long, and then there's a rescue craft coming in like 12 hours or something like that. I forget exactly.
I think it's just straight up that like that's when contact is reestablishable. Like there's no rescue craft coming because there's no contact until 12 hours.
Right, yes. It's 41 kilometers away. There is a
lander.
Right, that's what
41 kilometers away.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a harsh go. Like that's walkable for sure, but it's also on a alien moon.
It's walkable on Earth in regular clothes.
Yeah,
but like that's like a long day on Earth.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But gravity is lower, so it shouldn't be that hard.
Me talking to astronauts. How hard could it be, Jim?
I wonder how hard it is.
Well, there's a complication that immediately pops up, which is that her suit has been ruptured.
Yeah.
But do not worry, there's another suit that still contains oxygen,
Yeah,
very
and
close by.
unfortunately the owner is dead, so it's not like morally compromising to just get in on that oxygen.
Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunately, probably can't get the suit off without fucking up that oxygen supply, so we're gonna have to drag the corpse.
oh, oh, I didn't get that. I thought it was like pure sentimentality.
No, I think it's fully done. I think he was ready to leave before she was like, oh, right, oxygen, only other source of oxygen, here, connector
Yeah,
suits. Yeah.
no, that's fucked up. I wouldn't like that.
I actually did vaguely think in my head, like when I was remembering this episode, like, yeah, I remember her dragging the corpse, and I also kind of assumed it was a sentimental thing. But then I rewatched it now, and I was like, oh no, it's just like
Yeah,
pure
no,
survivalism, baby.
and like, good job, Martha.
Yeah, it's resourceful.
Like you should have left that corpse behind otherwise, and you probably would have
Yeah,
because you're smart. And
the journey begins.
and like the first thing she like does when she wakes up before embarking on this journey is like lock in her shoulder again because it's been very dislocated.
Yeah.
So she is in a lot of pain. So after like not that many kilometers, she's like, I'm gonna have to hit the morphine button. um
Yeah, I like that because usually in sci-fi shows like this, like there's like an auto doc or something like that, like something that like an AI that does like a little like diagnostic on you. This one just has to like, if you want the morphine, the button is there,
yeah.
which like I have to imagine like this is still sort of like NASA style missions, right? Like
Yeah.
it's obviously in the future, but not sci-fi in like a Star Trek or Mass Effect sense,
Yeah, no,
right?
it's purely sci-fi in that they're on Io.
Yeah.
There's like nothing else that like suggests like a technology level like substantively different from ours
It's
today.
doing the like early Black Mirror thing where it's current times, but there's a little bit of extra like
Yeah,
UI on stuff.
except in this case the little bit of extras being on Io,
Yeah,
which is probably a big deal
yeah,
and really cool. We
of
like
course.
Jupiter's moons, some of the best moons
We're a
out there.
pro Jupiter podcast, just in general.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's one of the main things we discussed when we were setting up this podcast is our
that's
position
right.
on the various planetary bodies. Fuck you, Uranus.
And immediately after she starts hearing voices from her dead comrade.
From
um
her dad could have also been on the table when they were writing this episode, to be fair.
yeah, no, it's like a little bit of gravity in there.
Yeah.
And she's mad at the voices because she's like, I can't deal with this right now. I'm dying. Like every second that I'm not in a spacecraft is me inching closer to death.
Yeah. She
Which, like,
also
fair.
Yeah, and pretty shortly, auditory hallucinations also become visual. And I mean, the middle of this episode is mostly a drug trip, right? I
Yeah,
think that's
like
a
a
fair.
gorgeous drug trip on Io.
Yeah, the animation of this episode is very cool because, like, immediately when at start, I want to say it has like the cell shaded quality. Like, I
Mm.
could see this being in a very tightly polished game, right? Like, it has that energy to
Yeah,
it.
or like a comic book that comes
Yeah,
with like a semi-hard cover.
and it very neatly transitions into the much more like psychedelic throughout the middle of this.
Yeah. And, she's just sort of like at one point she's like woken up from like a haze where she's just like meandering aimlessly by the voice.
Yeah,
So like we're establishing some like helpfulness here.
yeah,
And we sort of meander a bit and then we hit the amphetamine zone because she's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna fucking make it. I'm
yeah.
halfway and I'm in a bad way."
Like the math is not checking out on the
Yeah.
current pace, so we're hitting the amphetamine button. To be clear, we're not making jokes on the button stuff. It is a button on her little like
Yeah.
compad.
Which is a touch screen?
Yeah, which I didn't think about that. That's probably they could figure it out.
Yeah, but you want something. I guess if you're an astronaut suit, like being tactile is just out the window, huh?
Yeah, probably.
But yeah.
Nevertheless, the amphetamine button is hit, and to be honest, it doesn't seem to have a huge effect.
Well, she does. She like each of these comes with like a warning for like this will have bad side effects, and she immediately experiences like either hallucinations in the morphine uh, hit portion,
Yeah.
or being immediately angry in the other portion, and like it doesn't go for very long, until she like more or less collapses. Um,
Yeah.
but um, the voice she keeps hearing, the voice is consistent, so her like visual hallucinations drop off. Is like, nah, like fucking listen to me. I'm the machine. And uh like there it's more elegantly written than I'm
Yeah.
conveying it, of course, but she's like, Io is a machine. Turns on electromagnetic spectrum like, oh, my dead companion is being like read by the moon Io,
Yeah.
for like electromagnetic information.
Yeah. Essentially, like, sort of possessed, basically.
Yeah, but not like well,
There is a thing we should flag here, very obviously, right? Is that from the moment she hits the morphine button, the rest of this episode is up in the air of how much is like
yeah,
real and how much isn't, and like
yeah,
the episode itself is not shy about that. This isn't like meant
no,
to be a
no, it's
late
rather
term.
pushing the ambiguity of anything.
Yeah, but it is very clearly like trying to be like Io is a giant conscious machine, and it is contacting you through this dead compatriot of
Yeah,
yours.
because that's like how it's getting like any read on what the fuck is the deal with you. Because like your dead compatriot got like splashed with like IO sand or whatever.
Yeah,
Right? We're getting like crackling between like the slab that the other astronaut is being pulled on to like imply like
yeah,
activity, interconnectivity, and like I forget what the eruption was, and I don't think they like I think they make
sulfur.
it unclear on purpose, but like it seems to be like maybe the substrate of the moon.
Yeah, something like that.
Um and she gets like moon dust on her face as well. So like there's a lot of like connecting elements being piled on this dead astronaut.
Yeah.
And eventually like our live astronaut like clicks and it's like, oh right. You know what? I'm no longer believing this is a hallucination. This moon is alive and it's my friend. Um
Which I think even in this, it's not just that she believes it. It's also that like, listen, the alternative is that I
yeah.
just fucking die. Like there isn't a pragmatic case for disbelief currently.
Yeah, and we hit the like sort of like finale where the dead astronaut gets up and like carries her to like a lake of sulfur and the moon's like, hey, um I think you're fucked, but if you can get in here, we might be able to sort something out.
Yeah. It's very much dissolving into like a higher state of being vibe to it.
And
She does.
yeah, she's like uh she takes Pascal's wager
Yeah, yeah.
like at gunpoint.
Yes, that's about it. It's like, hey, listen, you can die, or you can believe in the machine god, and like you're not gonna live technically, but
Maybe.
yeah, like there's something more to it. But disbelief is like you will die. Like you
Yeah.
have exhausted the option of atheism.
Yeah. And she jumps and gets like dissolved and like has like this deep sinking into like a very like another like deeply cool visual. And the final shot is like her voice contacting an approaching spacecraft.
Yeah, which I think importantly we do not hear from the spacecraft, right? Like it does not respond to her contacting them.
Yeah,
I think that is kind of important on the ambiguity part, right? That this could still be the like dying dream sort of thing.
interesting. I sort of thought that they were like, nah, it's real, baby.
I think that's very much a reasonable
Mm.
interpretation, but I think it is also important that it's not like, oh hi Marfa.
Yeah.
How's being a planet like?
Um I mean, like, there is another visual where the planet turns, like, golden and beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm not sure, like, they're that committed to the ambiguity anymore at that point.
Maybe. I think that's not unfair.
But yeah, that's the episode.
That's the episode. I kind of wanted to take this as a bit of like a contrast to Swarm in some ways, right?
Mm.
Because Swarm is kind of like you can read different things from it, but like it is about a confrontation between humanity and like a understandable greater intelligence in some ways, right? Or
Yeah.
intelligence is the wrong word. Greater being in
Yeah.
that sense, like something that just outscales you very directly. And the sort of approach that like humanity doesn't understand that greater being, but it can, right? Like the secrets it has is eventually revealed to us. And I kind of like this, like the very pulse of the machine is a bit of a counterpoint where it's like, you are finding this greater being, the moon of Io itself, and the mechanics of that is completely alien except for, oh, it's some electromagnetic shit going on.
Yeah.
Which, like, yeah, that's true. That's most, like, I think that's anything that runs on neurons
Mm.
in any way. Which I don't think that's what I is doing, but it's like, there's not a lot of detail of like what's going on with
Yeah.
Io.
No,
And
not at all.
I think that's kind of interesting in the sense that like it's giving us this like you are approaching the greater being and you are getting like a fucking black screen when you're asking for the readouts, right? Like you're like they're showing you a picture in an alien language and you go, okay. Um
Mm.
Not sure what to make of that, but I am also acknowledging the fact that you are clearly like this again, greater scaled being.
Yeah. See, I thought it was like in another way a parallel to Swarm, in that like you picked Swarm because it's like quite Peter Wattsy,
Yeah.
and I reckon you picked this one because it's very much like another media property we both love, which is Scavenger's Reign.
That's part of it, yeah. I was
Yeah.
actually thinking about the scavenger train thing, which there's a part of me that was like, I had that thought when we were watching this episode, like, can we make Scavenger's Train into a D-Watch podcast season? And I don't quite think so,
I
but
don't know. I think I think it's too, drawn out. Like we could make like 2 or 3 episodes about it, but like
yeah,
it's a very slow burn.
that's really good. High
Yeah.
recommendation for Scavenger's Reign. But yeah, no, like I think it's an interesting sort of like difference in perspectives, right? Because like
Yeah.
Swarm is obviously like a bit more down to sci-fi basics
Mm.
than Peter Watts with Blindside, right? But it is still fundamentally
Yeah.
like the idea of like you're encountering this fundamentally like biological life on some
Yeah.
level, and it is alien, but it is discoverable. You can find out the
Yeah.
principles that work from this. Scavenger's Reign and the very pulse of the machine have this like wonder to it.
Yeah, um there's like a deep sense of like the sublime.
Yeah, the idea of
Which,
figuring out.
like, given the poets that, like, the moon is talking in,
Yeah,
now I don't know my English poets that well, but I reckon it's like quite a few romantic poets they're drawing on.
yeah. There's a tiny shot like as the vehicle's crashing where like a book called like Poems of Old Earth or something like
Yeah.
that is just like gets flung around for like a second or something.
Yeah, and I thought initially that was like, oh yeah, no, we're like in the far future, and it's like, no, I think it's that's why this astronaut like just like has so many poems in her brain.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really like Scavenger's Reign and The Very Pulse of the Machine are both much more about the experience
Yeah.
of like coming into contact with otherworldly life, right? And otherworldly systems of being. Whereas like even Blindside, that obviously like is about, hey, don't think too much, but
Mm.
it's still like a knowledge gathering operation, right? Like that's what it is about. It's about
Yeah.
figuring it out, figuring the mechanics out bit by bit.
To a degree, right? But there is like another element, or like I think Blindside like straddles the sort of like area like a bit more than like we would think at first glance, because like at the end of the day there is like some element of like open your mind, open your heart, that like goes like between Blindside, between Scavenger's Reign and the very pulse of the machine.
Yeah, I think Very Pulse of the Machine is the furthest like experiential here.
Yeah, yeah.
Swarm is probably the furthest in knowledge, I would say.
Yeah, and like I think Swarm is like about like I think Swarm has like also like I think Swarm is not like that philosophically like opposed to like this one,
Hmm.
right? It's I think it's more that like uh it's about like the failure to do so,
Mm.
right? It's like about sort of like sticking to like the myopia that like infects like sort of mundanity and like that just like sort of seeps through life. And like this one is like, yeah, but what if you couldn't, like if the myopia like got knocked the fuck out of you by like a ton of morphine, a ton of amphetamine, and a hard space car crash? Um and I don't think they like I think the same like idea like can drive both of them just in very different directions.
I think another thing that like sort of combines the variables in a machine and swarm in particular, and I think you could extend this to blindside and Scavenger's Reign too, is that like all of these paradigms are happening specifically at a time of great desperation and privation, right? Like
Yeah.
this isn't our dear protagonist Marfa is not discovering that Io is like a living machine from the comfort of like an Earth skyscraper. You know, this isn't like, oh, look at these readings, neat.
Yeah.
Which Blindside's probably the closest, but even then, like you are on a lone ship on the edge of like a hard sci-fi solar system,
Yeah.
right? Like you are not traveling faster than light. You are stuck here for years at minimum. Um, and I think that's like an interesting sort of like thing to look into, right? Like the idea of just knowledge through scarcity, almost like experience through scarcity. It's an almost like aesthetic view of like how to figure out the world around you
Yeah, I
and
mean,
like what
I think
drives you to it.
there is like a very literal going to the edge of like the world, right? It's
Yeah,
like you go to the edge of the known world and you like find new stuff beyond it.
yeah.
And I think like that's sort of something that all of these types of stories like go for, right? Because like knowledge within the known world is a quite different story.
It's much more structured, right? Like
Yeah.
this a part of these stories are about like we're tossing you into the pool, the sulfur pool, if you
Yeah.
will.
Like it's going like to the frontier. And like I do think it is interesting to that like there is just like this fairly universal like idea that like no, the frontier is where knowledge is.
That's where you get the Sufis. I've been doing some reading recently, in case that
You
isn't clear.
certainly have. Um
But no, like I think it is like a general sort of like thing that's applicable in a lot of literature about discovery, right? Like
mm,
fundamentally that's what it is, right? It's
yeah.
there are very few books that are like Jim sat in his lab and figured out stuff using established structural methods and it was cool. It led to a form of penicillin that is 1.5% more effective.
Yeah, this is like the breakthrough sort of brand of science. It's like uh complete novelty. And um I think part of that is like the demands of good stories, right?
For sure, like it just makes more sense for the literature model, right? But I think there's also an aspect of this where it's like it's not just about like making the big breakthroughs because you can make big breakthroughs in existing paradigms,
Yeah.
right? But the important part here is that like the breaking of the paradigm is what's dramatic, right? It's the
Yeah.
and like that's the scale as well, right? Is you're going from like, oh, we are like figuring out things scientifically, but just we have to rewire our minds a bit in something like
Yeah.
Blindside, right? Where you're like, oh, right, maybe there aren't other conscious aliens. Maybe it's just an unconsciousness throughout the
Yeah.
universe. Whereas this is at the very least on the edge of religiosity, right?
Yeah. And I think like there's like another element going on here, like sort of about ways of knowing,
Mm,
where like the frontier in like sort of all of these stories is depicted as like an extremely harsh and demanding place that has like a lot of like physical pressure it puts on you. And I think like that's like another element of the idea. It's like to like be like to become ready to um sort of open your mind to new ideas. Like you need to be like outside of your physical comfort zone as well as your mental comfort zone. Like,
Yeah.
and I think there's like a certain like sort of holistic like idea of like how you know things that's like very core to this.
I think it's hard to balance this because on one hand, like I don't want to get into the sort of like vibe that like comfort breeds decadence or
Mm,
whatever. Like just if we put our technological innovations on a scale of like more established societies to less
yeah,
established societies, it is the more established societies to do that, right? Just because it's a question of resources.
yeah,
But I think when it comes to like these sorts of paradigms, I think there's a point to make that like comfort breeds comfort
yeah,
in its own system.
yeah,
So if
like
you want to get out of that, you have to get hit by the space shuttle crash.
yeah. I think I need to give you another Peter Watts story after this.
I've
um
already read two whole stories.
oh, it's a short story.
I know.
That's but yeah, no, it's like if you are comfortable, like your incentives are fundamentally different, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's
you're not gonna jump in the sulfur pool because you're like, I'm just not getting this paper done. If
I don't
only
know.
there were
Due to recent events, I don't know. I think the sulfur pool was pretty attractive at some points during my thesis writing. But yeah, like it's a bit of a corollary to and this is maybe an arguable stretch, but like I think it's a bit of a corollary to like it's hard to make people believe things when their salary depends on them not believing it, right? Like
yeah,
it's the like why would you? Like if you've grown up in the same paradigm, like paradigm shift by its definition doesn't sound right.
yeah. And like I think the other thing is that like again the sort of the idea of myopia, right? Like you you are like sort of at the level that you're at in like a comfortable life like quite consistently. You're not
Yeah.
like taking like enough steps back to like behold the moon as a coherent whole. That's not like on most people's like regular schedule.
I have to imagine if Marfa just had a good oxygen tank and the like landing craft was a kilometer away, she had an hour to get there. The sulfur pool, it goes down in the list of options, right?
Yeah.
And even if everything else stayed the same, even if the like transcendental realization of the moon stayed the same, I think, the landing craft still comes up above that if it was available.
Yeah, well, I think like nine times out of ten at least, right? It takes it would take like some extraordinary like other elements to like push you. And like I think like there is like an interesting like you mentioned religion the other like earlier,
Yeah.
as like a way of thinking about this. And I think that is like something that like is not in conflict in my view in this one
Yeah.
because it is about uh science as like a transcendental experience, as a transcendental practice, and that is it certainly has like religious undertones, but it's not like anti-science.
No, I don't think so at all. I think the central thing here is more like revelation, right? Like
Yeah,
the moment the first person like did like gave someone penicillin and like their like lethal disease was just gone the next day, like I could see that being like a transcendental moment of
yeah,
like in the same sense of like yeah, I just had God speak to me.
yeah,
Like they are
exactly.
moments of like this precipice being crossed, and quite literally for Marfa at the end of the episode, but like it is a moment of like, holy shit, like this information welling over you when you've previously been either in sort of like a daze or like a stupor. In
Yeah,
her case, like one of desperation and like sort of edging towards just being like, I guess I'll just lay down and die, right?
yeah, and I think it does have like a sort of more mundane corollaries because like when you learn something you do just like sometimes have that moment where things fall into place
Yeah.
and you go, oh,
Oh,
I'm
right.
looking back at all the other elements of this problem and now that like my fundamental because like every I think every understanding sort of like starts like very rough hewn and
Yeah.
then you sort of figure out the details, and you're like, because you need to start somewhere, right? And you're like, oh yeah, no, my extremely like coarse first like image of like how this might work, um, now that I've like sort of detailed it, like suddenly like slots in,
Yeah.
and it's not quite the same thing, but like it's closer to this like it's seemingly mundane, but there is like some proximity to like the sort of like transcendental experience that this story is talking about.
I mean, I think it's all like a continuum, right?
Mm.
Like you're picking at the shadows and getting these like scattered reports, and then
Yeah,
eventually you're like, oh, this is the whole. Like it's a blind man and the elephant, except all of
yeah.
you are all of the blind man, and then at some point someone goes, "Hey, that's an elephant," and you go, "That makes so much sense! Oh my god, that's why there's a tusk.
Where
That's
the
why."
elephant sort of gently takes you into its trunk and is like, listen, I've been trying to reach out to you and I could only do so using Wordsworth.
What a beautiful metaphor here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
But
like I do think it like it just I don't think it needs to be religious. I don't think it needs to be non-religious.
yeah,
I think it just crosses those boundaries in a
yeah.
sense.
And yeah, no, with this, I quite like the sort of vision of transcendental science, because it, like, sure, a lot of the time like learning is a bit tedious and boring,
Yeah.
um and I mean that like for like all kinds of learning, like,
But your field, of course, is boring and stupid. Mine is cool.
of course, but like you do like need to trudge through until like you have
Yeah.
um like advancements, right? Sort of like individually as well as sort of more collectively. And it's interesting to have something that sort of like resolves like the sort of like to some extent a bit aesthetic contradictions between like calculated learning and like discovery into like a sort of more transcendental mode of knowing.
Yeah.
And listen, the only thing we're gonna recommend, is not don't do that with ChatGPT. You're falling down a hole if you do. Um,
Yeah.
but it's beautiful.
It is. I mean, like, I also get it because, like, if we're gonna go with this interpretation, I think there's also something to be said for the like feeling of like you're dragging this through for so long,
Yeah,
and then eventually you kind of come onto the peak, and you're like, oh yeah, it does fit together, right? Like
yeah,
it is a mountain climbing exercise that way. I also like as a final little note, I think this is actually like a little bit. I think this is illustrative of why like pseudoscience is so attractive.
yeah,
Because you can just be like, dude, it's quantum strings, and you go, whoa. And you
yeah,
kind of just like fake the revelation, but like that doesn't actually impact the power of the revelation side of
yeah.
things,
No,
right?
like the aesthetics of Revelation are like not that hard to ape,
Yeah,
and like you get that feeling one way or another.
yeah, exactly. Like it makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, no, thank you for hopefully also watching this episode. Thank you for listening to us.
Yeah.
What are we doing next week, Jim?
We'll be moving on to season 2 of Love, Death, Robots. I have. Do you want the episode title?
Absolutely.
I think we're gonna go with Ice in the Desert.
Ice in the desert.
Ice in the Desert.
You heard it here first,
We're
folks.
big fans of arid environments because I think Io is pretty arid, right? I have to imagine it qualifies.
I I
We
don't know
talked
if
about
like
sand earlier.
liquid sulfur counts.
Don't worry, we have plenty of liquids now. Water. Ugh, not that one.
Well, but yeah, thank you for listening and see you on the other side.
See you on the other side.